The author of Psalm 116 was living under some kind of death sentence. The snares of death encompassed me. The pangs of Sheol, the state of the dead, laid hold on me. I suffered distress and anguish, he says in verse 3. He was crying and stumbling, verse 8, greatly afflicted, verse 10. The opposition against him was so pervasive that he reasoned, all mankind are liars, verse 11. There was nothing he could do. It was as if he was bound to a terrible fate, as he puts it in verse 16. What do you do in a situation like that? Well, your answer depends on what you believe about God. Does he exist? Does he listen? Does he care? Do you need him? Or can you rescue yourself? If you truly know both yourself and God, you will do in a tight spot what the writer of Psalm 116 did. Knowing that God is gracious, righteous, and merciful, that he preserves the simple, as he says in verses 5 and 6, the writer called on God. "O Lord, I pray, deliver my soul," he says in verse 4. And he did. God saved him. He dealt bountifully with him, verses 6 and 7. The writer would walk before the Lord in the land of the living, verse 9. Now, of course, God doesn't deliver everyone in the same way. And eventually all of God's saints will die. But even death isn't a disaster for believers. Precious in the sight of the Lord is the death of his saints, the writer says in verse 15. God sees his beloved ones even through death. But if you are alive, if right now you are enjoying God's daily mercies, as Lamentations 3 puts it, you have an important question to answer that the psalmist asks. What shall I render to the Lord for all his benefits to me? And here are three good answers that the psalmist provides. Number one, love God. God isn't just to be served or obeyed, but to be cherished as he cherishes us. There's a great profession of faith question that we use in our church. Do you love the Lord? If you've been visited by the Lord in his mercy, the answer should be yes. I love the Lord. Number two, you should rely on the Lord, as verse 13 says. Raise up the cup of God's salvation. Drink in all of God's provision. Seek his help for all your needs. Rely on the Lord. Number three, obey God. Twice the writer commits to paying his vows, doing everything his profession of faith bound him to, verses 14 and 18. Believers are God's servants, verse 16. We have the privilege of offering ourselves as living sacrifices of thanksgiving, he says in verse 17. Paul says the same thing in Romans 12:1. Ironically, this service, this obedience is not burdensome. In fact, as the writer says in verse 16, being freed from the hold of Satan to serve God is truly a loosening of bonds. Let's hear Psalm 116. I love the Lord because he has heard my voice and my pleas for mercy. Because he has inclined his ear to me, therefore I will call on him as long as I live. The snares of death encompassed me. The pangs of Sheol laid hold on me. I suffered distress and anguish. Then I called on the name of the Lord. O Lord, I pray, deliver my soul. Gracious is the Lord and righteous. Our God is merciful. The Lord preserves the simple. When I was brought low, he saved me. Return, O my soul, to your rest, for the Lord has dealt bountifully with you. For you have delivered my soul from death, my eyes from tears, my feet from stumbling. I will walk before the Lord in the land of the living. I believed even when I spoke, I am greatly afflicted. I said in my alarm, all mankind are liars. What shall I render to the Lord for all his benefits to me? I will lift up the cup of salvation and call on the name of the Lord. I will pay my vows to the Lord in the presence of all his people. Precious in the sight of the Lord is the death of his saints. O Lord, I am your servant. I am your servant, the son of your maidservant. You have loosed my bonds. I will offer to you the sacrifice of thanksgiving and call on the name of the Lord. I will pay my vows to the Lord in the presence of all his people. In the courts of the house of the Lord, in your midst, O Jerusalem, praise the Lord.